The text that changed everything. The phone was face down on my kitchen counter when it buzzed. It was a Tuesday, 7:14 in the morning. I remember because I had just poured my second cup of coffee, and the sun was coming through the window at that low angle that makes the whole kitchen look golden for exactly 4 minutes before it shifts. I almost didn't pick it up. I was tired. I had been tired for 8 months straight. 8 months of venue calls, catering negotiations, floral consultations, timeline spreadsheets, RSVPs, seating logistics, and one very long wire transfer that I still couldn't stop thinking about. I picked up the phone. It was a text from a number I had saved as Dana, wedding coordinator. I read it once. Then I read it again. Then I set the phone down, picked up my coffee mug, and stood at the window watching the golden light shift across my counter until it disappeared. The text said, "Hi Sarah. Just a quick update, Mia has made some adjustments to the final guest list. Your name has been removed from the attendee roster. No changes to the financial arrangement, of course. The deposit is locked and non-refundable at this stage, so everything moves forward as planned. Let me know if you have any logistical questions on your end. Thanks so much." Let me tell you what that text actually meant in plain language. My sister, the woman I had spent 8 months building a wedding for, had cut me from the guest list. Not the vendor list. Not the coordinator loop. The guest list. The one that contains the names of people who are loved. And the woman who ran her wedding was texting me, cheerfully with an exclamation point, to let me know that my $50,000 deposit was still very much appreciated. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I put the phone back face down on the counter, finished my coffee, got dressed, and drove to work. But something had shifted inside me that morning. Something quiet and permanent. And if my sister had known what I was about to find out, she would have called me before Dana ever sent that text. Have you ever felt like the invisible one in your own family? Like the one who shows up, handles everything, makes it work, and somehow ends up with the least? Stay with me, because this story doesn't end with the text message. Who I am and why this mattered. My name is Sarah Calloway. I was 34 years old when this happened. I'm a financial compliance analyst. I work for a mid-sized firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. My job, in simple terms, is to find the things people hope nobody finds. Missing disclosures. Misclassified transactions. Paper trails that lead somewhere they weren't supposed to go. I am precise by profession. I track numbers for a living. I know what a contract says, what it doesn't say, and most importantly, what the gap between those two things can cost someone. I tell you this because it matters for later. But first, you need to understand Mia. Mia is my younger sister by 3 years. She is brilliant in the way that people who've never had to work hard for anything are brilliant, charming, magnetic, immediately likable. She walks into rooms and people rearrange themselves around her. She always has. Even when we were children, the dynamic was set. Mia was the one people noticed, and I was the one who made sure things ran. I was the one who drove her to auditions when she was 16 and our parents were working double shifts. I was the one who proofread her college applications, co-signed her first apartment lease at 24 when her credit wasn't established, and covered her emergency car repair in 2019 for $2,200 that I never saw again. Not because she was ungrateful. Mia was always grateful in the moment. She said thank you. She sent the occasional gift. She told people I was the most capable person she knew. But gratitude in the moment and reliability over time are very different things. I learned that slowly, then all at once. When Mia got engaged to Derek Hargrove in the spring of 2 years ago, she called me within an hour of it happening. I was the first person she called. She was breathless and laughing, and she said, "Sarah, I need you. I can't do this without you." And I believed her. She wasn't wrong exactly. She did need me. She needed my organizational skills, my ability to negotiate vendor contracts, my connections to 3 different catering operations through my firm's event partnerships, and, as I would come to understand, my savings account. "It'll all come back to you," she told me, sitting across from me at a restaurant in February, 2 months into planning. Derek's family is covering the reception liquor package and the honeymoon. Mom and Dad are doing the rehearsal dinner. Everything else, I just need someone steady to front it. You know how I am with money, Sarah. You've always been better at this. $50,000. That was my front. I wired it in 2 separate transfers, $30,000 in March, $20,000 in April, to the venue's escrow account with Dana Whitfield, the wedding coordinator, listed as the escrow contact. I have the receipts. I always keep receipts. What they didn't know was that those receipts would become the most important documents of the next 14 months of my life. The pattern I refused to name. There is something almost embarrassing about looking back at a pattern and realizing how long you let it continue because you didn't want to give it a name. If you name it, it becomes real. And if it's real, you have to do something about it. So I didn't name it. The first thing I should have named happened in 2017. Our grandmother passed away and left behind a small estate, mostly personal belongings, a modest savings account, and a piece of jewelry that had been in our family for 3 generations. A pearl and gold bracelet that our grandmother had worn every Sunday of her adult life. She left a handwritten note. Not a legal document, just a note in her Bible, saying the bracelet should go to the girl who needs it most. My mother interpreted that as Mia. I didn't fight it. I told myself it was just a bracelet. I told myself our grandmother loved us both equally. I told myself the ambiguity of the note made the interpretation reasonable. But I knew even then that the interpretation was wrong. Not because I wanted the bracelet for myself. Because the girl who needs it most in our grandmother's language meant the girl who had been through more. And I had been through more. Quietly. Without making it anyone else's problem. That was the first time I didn't name what I saw. The second time was Christmas 2020. Our parents gave Mia a cash gift of $8,000 to help cover a down payment on a new car. The car Mia wanted was a lease she couldn't qualify for without a cosigner. And when I offered to cosign, she thanked me and then used the $8,000 plus an additional $1,500 she borrowed from me as her first-year insurance fund. She paid back $400 of that $1,500 over the following 18 months. When I mentioned it once, gently asking if she remembered, she said, "Sarah, you know I'm terrible with dates. Don't make me feel guilty about it." So I didn't bring it up again. The third time was during the engagement planning itself. 8 months of my life. I want you to understand what that actually looked like. Every Saturday morning, I was on calls with Dana about venue logistics, lighting rigs, tent installations, catering timelines, and the seating politics of 2 families who did not particularly like each other. Every other Wednesday, I was coordinating with the florist, a woman named Cecile who charged $340 per centerpiece and had opinions about hydrangeas that I will never fully recover from. I built a 47-line spreadsheet tracking every vendor, every deposit, every deadline, every contact person, every cancellation policy, and every outstanding payment. I attended 4 in-person venue walkthroughs, 2 cake tastings, 1 lighting demonstration, and a 3-hour meeting with a string quartet that Mia later decided she didn't want. Mia attended approximately half of these things. When she didn't show, she sent Derek. When Derek didn't show, she sent her maid of honor, Priya. When Priya didn't show, she sent an apology text. I never said anything. Because that's what capable people do in families like mine. They don't say anything. They handle it. They believe that the people they love will eventually recognize the weight being carried on their behalf. They don't. Not until the weight is gone. And sometimes not even then. What they didn't know was that I had been quietly documenting everything. Every email. Every text. Every receipt. Every wire confirmation. Every unsigned reimbursement agreement. Not because I suspected betrayal, but because I'm a compliance analyst. Documentation is not suspicion. Documentation is habit. It would turn out to be the most important habit of my life. The moment it became undeniable. 2 days after Dana's text, Mia called me. Not to apologize. Not to explain. She called at 6:47 in the evening on a Thursday with the energy of someone who had rehearsed what they were going to say, and was hoping to get through it quickly. "Sarah, I know you got Dana's message and I need you to understand that this wasn't personal." I said nothing. I let the silence sit. Derek's mother had a list, she continued. She has opinions about the seating and the count, and honestly it's been a whole thing, and I didn't want to drag you into the drama, but the head count just got really tight, and I thought you would understand. Because you always understand. I let another beat of silence pass. Then I said, Mia, I wired $50,000 into a venue escrow account for your wedding. I know, she said. And we are so grateful for that, Sarah. You know that. It's going to come back to you, I promise. Derek's family is. Mia, I said. I need you to hear what I'm saying. I wired $50,000. And I'm not on the guest list. A pause. It's not about money, she said finally. You know this family stuff is complicated. Which family stuff? I asked. Derek's mother just has this vision for the day, and she wants it intimate, and 260 guests is not intimate, Mia. Another pause. Longer this time. Sarah, don't make this harder than it needs to be. And there it was. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I had heard that sentence in different forms my entire life. Don't make a big deal out of the bracelet. Don't bring up the money. Don't ask too many questions. Don't make it complicated. Don't make it harder. For 34 years I had been shrinking myself to make things easier for everyone else. I said, okay, Mia. I won't make it harder. And I hung up. I sat in my car. I had taken the call in the parking lot of a grocery store. And I stared through the windshield at a shopping cart that someone had left in the middle of an empty parking space. I thought about the $50,000. I thought about the 47-line spreadsheet. I thought about the wire transfer receipts. And then I thought about something I had almost forgotten. Something I had filed away 7 months ago during the initial contract review, when I was going through the venue paperwork for Dana's records. I drove home. I opened my filing cabinet. And I found the thing that changed everything. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. Not even close. What I found in the paperwork. Here is what most people don't know about venue deposit agreements. The person who signs the primary booking contract is not always the same as the person who funds the escrow deposit. And when those two people are different, when the funding party is not the contracting party, the legal standing of the money becomes complicated. Very complicated. I knew this because I work in financial compliance. 7 months earlier, when Dana had sent over the initial venue contract for my review, I had noticed something. The contract listed Mia Calloway and Derek Hargrove as the primary event holders. Standard. Expected. But the escrow deposit clause, buried in Section 7 subsection C under third-party payment provisions, contained a line I had circled in pencil and then set aside because at the time I had no reason to think I'd ever need it. The line read, in cases where deposit funds are sourced from a third-party payer not listed as a primary event holder, said payer retains right of reimbursement claim in the event of material contract modification, including but not limited to changes to event scope, cancellation, or removal of agreed services. I stared at that sentence for a long time. Then I pulled out my wire transfer confirmations. Both transfers, $30,000 in March, $20,000 in April, had been initiated from my personal account. My name, my bank, my routing number, my reference number. I was not on the contract as an event holder. I was the third-party payer, which meant that under Section 7C, if there had been a material contract modification, and removing a guest and previously agreed co-coordinator from the event absolutely qualified, I had a documented reimbursement claim. Not a favor. Not a request. A claim. I called my attorney the following morning. Her name is Renee Caldwell. I have worked with her on 2 previous compliance matters through my firm. She is precise, methodical, and she does not waste words. I read her the contract clause over the phone. She was quiet for 4 seconds. Then she said, Sarah, do you have the wire transfer confirmations in your name? Both of them. And you were removed from the guest list after the deposit was submitted? Correct. I have the text from the coordinator timestamped. Another silence. Okay, she said. Do not contact your sister or the coordinator again until we speak in person. Can you come in Thursday at 2? I could. I remember the exact moment I closed my filing cabinet that night. The small click of the metal latch. The ordinary sound of something significant. I had spent 8 months building my sister's wedding. I had spent $50,000 of my savings. I had attended every meeting, managed every vendor, absorbed every stress that Mia didn't want to carry. And now I had a legal claim. Not because I was angry, not because I wanted revenge, but because they had made me a transaction. And transactions have terms. What they didn't know was that I hadn't just funded a wedding. I had, without realizing it, funded leverage. The quiet move they never saw coming. I want to be clear about something before I describe what happened next. I did not want to destroy my sister's wedding. I want you to understand that. Because what I'm about to describe might sound calculated. And it was, but it was not malicious. It was not revenge for the sake of revenge. It was the methodical, documented, legally grounded response of a woman who had spent 3 decades being the quiet one, and finally understood that quiet did not mean powerless. Renee and I met on Thursday. She reviewed the full contract, both wire confirmations, Dana's text, and a printed summary of the 8 months of coordinator emails I had forwarded to myself as documentation. This is a strong third-party reimbursement position, she told me. The clause is unambiguous. You are the payer of record. The modification to the event, specifically your removal, which is documented in writing from the coordinator, triggers your standing. What are my options? I asked. She laid them out. Option 1. Send a formal demand letter to the venue requesting reimbursement of the $50,000 on grounds of material contract modification. This would effectively freeze the deposit until the matter was resolved. Option 2. File a civil claim, which would trigger a legal hold on the escrow account and require the venue and the event holders, Mia and Derek, to respond formally. Option 3. Attempt a negotiated resolution directly with Mia before escalating, with all communication documented through counsel. I chose option 3 first. Not because I was soft, because I wanted Mia to have the opportunity to make this right before it became something she couldn't control. Renee drafted a letter. It was 2 pages. Professional, precise, and completely devoid of emotion. It summarized my position as third-party payer. It cited the relevant contract clause. It noted the documented modification. The text from Dana, timestamp 7:14 a.m. on a Tuesday. It stated that I was prepared to pursue formal reimbursement through legal channels unless we could reach a private resolution within 10 business days. And at the bottom, there was a single line I had asked Renee to include. Ms. Calloway is also prepared to consider alternative resolution arrangements, including restoration of her original role and attendance, subject to written confirmation. We sent the letter via certified mail and email simultaneously. Mia received it on a Friday afternoon. She called me at 4:52 p.m. I didn't answer. I let it go to voicemail. She called again at 4:58, again at 5:03, at 5:11, at 5:29. At 6:14 she sent a text. Sarah, what is this? Call me back. At 6:47, Derek called from his number. I didn't answer that either. At 8:02 p.m., a number I didn't recognize called. Picked up. It was Derek's father, a man named Raymond Hargrove who I had met exactly once, at an engagement dinner 8 months prior, where he had shaken my hand and said, "Mia tells us you're the organized one," in a tone that was not entirely a compliment. He was different on the phone. Measured. Businesslike. "Miss Calloway," he said. "I understand there's been a significant misunderstanding." "There hasn't been a misunderstanding," I said. "There's been a removal. From a guest list. For an event I funded." A pause. "I see," he said. "And this letter, your attorney sent this on your behalf?" "She did." Another pause. Longer. "Miss Calloway, I'd like to propose a conversation. Just between us before this gets any further. I think there are options here that haven't been fully explored." I said, "Mr. Hargrove, I think you should speak with your son and my sister together. I'll make myself available Monday at noon." You can call this number. I hung up. That weekend was the longest of my life. Not because I was anxious, but because I knew the clock was running, and every hour of silence was pressure building somewhere I couldn't see. On Saturday, Mia showed up at my apartment. She didn't ring the bell. She knocked 3 times. Fast. I opened the door. She looked like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were swollen. She was holding her phone in both hands the way people do when they've been staring at it for too long. "Sarah," she said, "this is out of control." "Is it?" I said. "You're going to freeze the venue account." Dana said if there's a legal hold, the caterers walk. The florist walks. Everything falls apart 60 days before the wedding. I said nothing. "Can we please just talk about this?" she said. "Please. Like sisters." I stepped back and let her in. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I had taken Dana's text 2 weeks earlier, and I let Mia talk for 45 minutes. She cried. She apologized. She said Derek's mother had pushed for the guest list changes and she had let it happen because she was overwhelmed and she hadn't thought through what it would mean, and she was sorry, and she had always counted on me, and she knew she had taken me for granted, and she was sorry, and please could we fix this? When she finished, I said, "Mia, I need 3 things. First, I am reinstated on the guest list in writing confirmed by Dana. Second, we sit down with a notary and formalize a repayment agreement for the $50,000 with a signed timeline. Third, going forward, any event decisions that affect my name, my money, or my role require my explicit consent." She stared at me. "That's it," she said. "That's it," I said. "Sarah, that's so yes. Yes. Obviously yes." I slid a piece of paper across the table. Renee had drafted it. Mia signed it that evening. That was the moment everything shifted. What happened after? The wedding happened 62 days later. I was there. Table 4, center section, with a clear view of the altar. Mia had placed me there herself, in a revision to the seating chart that Dana had sent me in writing with a confirmation signature. The ceremony was beautiful. I will say that honestly. The hydrangea Cecile had been so insistent about looked extraordinary in the afternoon light. The string quartet Mia had eventually rehired, a different one, played something slow and perfect as she walked down the aisle. I cried a little. I'm not ashamed of that. Derek's mother sat in the 3rd row and did not look at me once the entire evening, which was fine. We did not need to have a relationship. Raymond Hargrove found me at the cocktail hour. He shook my hand. He said, "You handled that with a lot of grace, Miss Calloway." I thanked him and moved on. Dana Whitfield, the coordinator who had sent me the cheerful text with the exclamation point, was professionally distant with me the entire day, which was also fine. We did not need to be friends. The notarized repayment agreement specified the following. Mia and Derek would repay $50,000 in full within 36 months of the wedding date. Payments of $1,400 per month beginning 90 days post-wedding. Interest-free by my choice because this was still family and I wasn't trying to punish her. I was trying to establish that there were terms. They have made every payment on schedule. I also want to tell you something about Derek's family. 3 months after the wedding, I learned, through a conversation with Raymond's wife, Margaret, at a family dinner, that it had not actually been Derek's mother who pushed to remove me from the guest list. It had been Mia. The headcount issue and his mother's vision, that had been the story Mia told me, and told Derek, and apparently even told his parents, to avoid accountability. When I found out, I sat with it for a long time. I didn't confront Mia about it. I filed it. Filed it in the same place I file everything important, in the quiet archive of things I now know to be true about the people in my life, and what they are capable of when they think no one is watching. The bracelet from my grandmother, the pearl and gold one that went to the girl who needs it most, has been on my wrist every day since my mother gave it to me 6 months after the wedding. Mia asked her to. I don't know if that means everything is repaired, but I know what it means. It means that when the leverage was gone and the pressure had passed and there was nothing left to gain, my sister made a quiet gesture, and I chose to receive it. Not because I've forgotten, but because I've decided that carrying the weight of other people's capacity is its own kind of prison. And I am done being imprisoned by the people I love. What I know now. I don't tell this story because I'm proud of how strategic I was. I tell it because I spent 34 years believing that being capable meant being available. That loving someone meant absorbing whatever they needed, whatever it cost, without presenting a bill. And I think a lot of you know exactly what that feels like. The invisible one. The capable one. The one who handles it. The one who's always there. The one people call when something needs to get done, and somehow stop seeing when the work is finished. If that's you, I want you to hear this. Your competence is not an invitation for exploitation. Your reliability is not a permission slip. Your love for someone is not a contract that removes your right to be treated with dignity. You are allowed to have terms. You are allowed to say, I will show up for you and I expect to be seen. You are allowed to take up space at the table you helped build. The day I sat across from my sister and slid that piece of paper across the table, I wasn't doing it out of anger. I was doing it because I had finally understood that the kindest thing I could do for both of us was to stop pretending that what happened to me hadn't happened. Peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is knowing exactly what you're worth and quietly refusing to accept anything less. That's where I am now. And honestly, it's a very good place to be. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been the capable one who ended up invisible, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from. Tell me the moment you finally stopped shrinking for someone else. If you're not subscribed yet, now is the time. Every week I bring you stories about real people who found their footing after being underestimated, by family, by partners, by the systems they trusted. Hit the like button if you stayed until the end. Tells me this kind of storytelling matters to you. And if someone in your life needs to hear this today, someone who keeps carrying weight that isn't theirs, share this video with them. Sometimes the right story at the right time is the thing that changes everything. I'll see you in the next one.